Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lydia Kyle, and if you are new here, I am so glad to see you. Hit that subscribe button. I'm a book reviewer, book enthusiast, book lover, and this is one of my favorite videos that I do each month where I give you a recap of every single book that I've read in the past month. And this is the first month of 2025, so these are all of my January reads for 2025. It was a wild ride. There's a lot going on here. Nonfiction, fantasy, young adult fantasy, some fiction that was nominated for GoodReads Awards. We've got some controversial fantasy. We've got some highly anticipated releases that were a total letdown, and some really devastating historical nonfiction that I'm glad that I read, but was really hard to read. So without any further ado, let's review these books. Anytime I do book content or book reviews, I like to start out by saying that keep in mind, my reviews are my own. If I review a book and you loved it, but I did not, that is okay. My opinions are not a personal attack on your reading tastes, and also vice versa. If I loved a book and you hated it, we can respectfully disagree on that. I think the book community is getting a little bit too passionate when it comes to disagreeing with people based on things that are just personal preference. So as always, I love your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to discuss what you liked or didn't like. I'd love to hear if you added something to your TBR based on my reviews. And I'd love to know if you're a new subscriber, because like I said, I'm so glad that you're here and I'm really enjoying doing YouTube and I love doing book reviews. So here we go. Four Ruined Realms by Corland. This is book 2 and a trilogy, unfinished trilogy. Book 1 is Five Broken Blades. I was actually sent an advanced reader copy of Five Broken Blades last year. I wasn't expecting it, but I really did enjoy it. Now, this one, I give it a 5 out of 10. And mainly I think it's because this is book 2, sometimes second books, just they become the filler book. We've got some world building going on. We've got some character development. I was left wanting more, but also I wasn't unhappy with this book. I just liked the first one better, but I have high hopes for the third, and I will continue the trilogy. I'm gonna read the third book, I will purchase the third book, and I really like the characters that she's developed. If this is a book where maybe the world building, I wish there was a little bit more, the characters, I find them very unlikable and likable. So there are characters that I have attached myself to, but there are also characters that I just vehemently hate. And that's good character development, in my opinion. Even if you don't like them, there's a reason for it. And I like her writing style. I like the relationships that she's developing. These do have romance in them, but there's a lot of characters, and there's 5 points of view in any of these stories. So we have Five Broken Blades, we have 5 different assassins that have come together for a mission, and then in Four Ruined Realms, we have the same 5 assassins, and we have each of their point of view. So there's various relationships that are happening throughout the story. So it's not just one main focus or one couple. We've got a lot of things going on, and everybody has their own personal problems. So it gets not complex in an overwhelming way, but it gets busy. So I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10, even though I did enjoy it. It was a filler book, but I'm looking forward to the third. First nonfiction book that I read this month. This is Unmask Alice by Emerson. A lot of people are familiar with the book Go Ask Alice. Go Ask Alice was presented as a collection of diary entries by a young girl who became a drug addict, fell into this ring of abuse, addiction, and then eventually she dies. And it was published, Go Ask Alice was published as kind of this international sensation of true diary entries of a troubled girl. And it created this panic in the United States over things like LSD, drugs, sex, rock and roll, the whole 9 yards. And it created this panic. Well, come to find out, Go Ask Alice was a hoax. Not only was Go Ask Alice a hoax, another set of journals called Jay's Journal, which was about a boy who got sucked into a satanic cult, that was also a hoax. And they were written by a woman from Utah who posed as a trained clinical psychologist, even though she was not. And she forged these true diaries, among others, and wrote them off as her own, even though they were published anonymously. It's a wild ride. Not only does Unmask Alice talk about that particular controversy, it goes into like the war on drugs, the panic over different religious cults during our American history. It's really interesting. It's a very fast read too. As far as a nonfiction goes, I flew through this because in some ways it kind of reads like a fiction because it's like there's no way this is real. Like there's no way that someone pulled off this big of a scam. Like international phenomenon, bestsellers, and it was a scam. It's wild, easy read. Even if you're not familiar with Go Ask Alice or Jay's journals, this is pretty interesting. The next book that I read was Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange. This was nominated for a GoodReads Award last year in fiction. This was recommended to me by my mom. My mom really, really loved this book. I liked it, but it wasn't my favorite, and I felt that I was left wanting a lot more. However, I believe there's a lot of symbolism in that, and that may have been intentional on the author's part. Tommy Orange is a Native American author, and this is the story of a Native American family tree that has just been absolutely torn apart by trauma, addiction, and the devastation of the Sand Creek Massacre that happened. That's where our story begins in this family tree. And then it proceeds to go through different things like Native American boarding schools for Native American children and how that impacted this family tree. It's very disjointed generationally. We get a lot from some generations and we get very little from others. But again, I feel like that's symbolic. This was an important story. I'm glad that I read it. It just wasn't my favorite, and the writing style didn't necessarily resonate with me, but I absolutely understand why Wandering Stars was nominated for a GoodReads Award. Next up, we have Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. This is a controversial one. People feel a lot of different ways about this book and about this trilogy. I have not gotten any farther than book 1 in the trilogy. I will read the rest of the trilogy as of right now. I haven't picked up book 2 yet. Nevernight gets people riled up, and it got Jay Kristoff in some hot water. Some of it may be justified. Some of it maybe not. It's hard to say. Nevernight is the story of a young girl who has the magic of shadows, and she is going to, I guess you could call it an academy, for a secret society of assassins. And she is being trained because she wants to assassinate her father's murderers. Her father was high up in the political society, and he was executed for treason, high treason, and his family was torn apart and murdered as well. She was the only survivor, and she is seeking revenge. And so she ends up as an apprentice to someone who is a part of this secret society / cult of assassins. And she goes to this academy, and book 1 is essentially her journey through that school system and all the things that that entails. It also includes the story of her kind of learning more about the magic that she possesses because she is not a mere mortal. And it's dark. I'll tell you that much. And the thing that I struggle with personally with this one is Jay Kristoff never lets me down when it comes to writing. Jay Kristoff can write a story. I mean, it's beautiful. The dialogue is beautiful. The words are beautiful. The layout is beautiful. The way this book is laid out is beautiful. Okay, but this one is dark. And I'm left wondering, are the good guys or are the bad guys good guys? Or is nobody good? I'm not entirely sure. And that's very hard for me because I don't feel like I can trust any of these characters, which again, that is Jay Kristoff's style. I will say sometimes people confuse this as a young adult fantasy. This is absolutely not young adult. Even though the main character is under the age of 18, there is explicit content in this. There's explicit language, there is explicit romance, and it is not appropriate for young adults. Sometimes this ends up being presented as a young adult. That's one of the controversies surrounding this book. This is not young adult. This is adult fantasy, and it definitely firmly roots itself in that category. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in book 2. Another Native American author that I enjoyed reading this month was Morgan Talty. This is Night of the Living Rez. It's a collection of short stories. However, to me, it read more like a novel. I think maybe it's considered short stories, a collection of stories, because it's disjointed and it's not in chronological order, and we kind of bounce around in the storyline. But really, to me, it read like a novel, at least up until the end. The last few chapters are a total fever dream, but the writing in this is beautiful. In my opinion, I feel like this should be just as popular as Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange, if not more popular. I loved this, and I wish more people knew about this collection of stories. I think Morgan Talty is a phenomenal author, and I think his representation of life on the reservation is informative, heart-wrenching, and very real. And I appreciate this book very much. I would recommend this book before I would recommend Wandering Stars. If someone came to me and they said, hey, I'd love to read a Native American author, I would recommend Night of the Living Rez before I would recommend Wandering Stars. I really, really enjoyed this. This is a phenomenal author, and I hope that I can read more from this author in the future. The next nonfiction that I read was The Rape of Nanking by Chang. This was hard. I knew I wanted to read it. I was minorly educated on what happened in Nanking to the Chinese at the hands of the Japanese, and I knew that I needed to know more because it irked me that this was not something that I was educated about in history, whether it was in high school or college. And I just knew that this was something that I needed to take the time to understand for whatever reason. The Rape of Nanking is the story of the forgotten Holocaust of World War II, where the city of Nanking was infiltrated and taken over by the Japanese military, and approximately 300,000 civilians were murdered. And not only were they murdered, they were tortured, they were starved, they were raped, they were buried alive, they were absolutely brutalized and terrorized for 6 weeks. 300,000 people in the span of 6 weeks. And this is something that we are not educated on. We don't know, many people don't know that this ever happened. And that's why it's called the Forgotten Holocaust of World War II. This is not only a disturbing book, but it's a very informative book, both historically and culturally. I found it to be very educational in regards to the reason why this happened, both ethnically and socially and politically from a world perspective. There were a lot of things in this book that I don't think I would have ever learned about or had even a minor understanding of if I had not read The Rape of Nanking. It was hard to read. This is not easy. There are photographs in this book that will keep you awake at night, and I could not read this before bed. We'll just put it that way. Next, I have a young adult fantasy. This is called Half a War by Joe Abercrombie. This is the third book, final book in the Shattered Sea trilogy. I really, really enjoyed this trilogy. Fantastic world building, fantastic characters, and a really, really interesting and unique way to lay out a story. Each book has a different main character that we are following. However, characters flow through all of the stories. So the main character from book 1, he continues to be a prominent main character in the books. However, book 2 is not his story. The main character from book 2, she carries on into the third book, even though the third book has a different focal point. Very interesting. I love the way that the characters interacted with each other. I loved the lore and I loved the world building. This is a little bit dark. However, I still feel that it falls into the young adult category. As we progress, I think it becomes maybe a little bit older. However, even though it has things like war, slavery, gore, political treason, those types of things, I still think that this is fairly approachable for young adult, maybe just older young adults. I really, really enjoyed this trilogy. I would recommend this trilogy to a lot of people that enjoy fantasy, whether it's young adult fantasy or adult fantasy. Really great writing, really approachable, very engaging, exciting, captivating, and beautifully written. The biggest letdown of the month, although I don't know why I'm surprised. I hated Iron Flame. I thought Iron Flame was an absolute waste of trees. I gave Onyx Storm a chance because I loved Fourth Wing. Book 1, so much potential. Book 2, epic failure. Book 3, I thought, maybe we can pull ourselves out of this slump and write something worth reading. I was wrong. This was not good. This was not good. It was careless writing. It was filled with unnecessary tropes. It was a complete digression from what was built in Fourth Wing. The characters have devolved to a point where they are immature and unlikable, and a lot of them absolutely pointless. The repetition of certain phases, if I never see the word Onyx or read the phrase drink him in again in my life, I will be absolutely fine. There are so many repetitive phrases, words, unnecessary dialogue, and the Gen Z slanginess. Why? What? Why? In Fourth Wing, we were given a very distinct world. We were given distinct characters. We were given a distinct way of speaking and communicating. Even though the writing was a little bit shaky in Fourth Wing, it had potential. This reads like poorly written fan fiction. And I am done with the series. There's supposedly supposed to be 2 more books coming. I won't read them. It's not salvageable at this point. Huge letdown. I know a lot of people loved it. I'm so sorry. I hated it. Okay, you guys, that's it. Those were my January reads. Let me know what you think in the comments. I know that Onyx Storm review might have set a few people off. Again, I'm so sorry. Those are just my opinions. They're honest, they're real, they're raw, and I'm not gonna pull any punches. I really didn't like some of these books. I was indifferent towards some of them, and I really liked some of them. Let me know what your thoughts are. I love that you guys are here. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Hit the like button, drop a comment, and if you want more bookish content from me, you can find it right here. This is a suggested video, something that I think you'll like. If you liked this video, check it out. Let me know if you hop over there, drop a comment on this video and tell me that, hey, I came from your January recap, because I love to see that you guys are interacting with the content. And if you share this on social media, be sure to tag me. My handle here is the same everywhere else. I would love to know what you're saying about my bookish content. Thank you for showing up on YouTube. I will see you guys back next time. Bye.